Give it to me! Please? Why would I do that? I dangled the Nintendo pitch over Farah's head, taunting her with it. This is what happens when you don't let people borrow your stuff when they ask you nicely. Please! My brother will blame me! He told me not to let anyone touch it! I just borrowed it, please! It's not even yours? Are you really that poor that you don't have your own pitch? I bet your dad bought this used. My boys laughed along with me. Why are you even in our school if you aren't rich? Yeah! Didn't you get the memo? This is an exclusive school, peasant! If your dad's not making 7 figures, you shouldn't even be here! Farah jumped up and reached for the pitch again. I moved my hand back so she couldn't grab hold of it. But that was a mistake, because when she missed, her hand came down on my face and her nails scratched me. I yelped in pain. Ugh, what the heck? What do you think you're doing? I screamed at her, and in my fit of rage, I slammed the pitch onto the ground and trampled it over and over with my feet. The girl cried, and with her non-stop crying, I lost interest in tormenting her. I'm bored now. Let's go. I spared a glance at her. It could have been me at her place instead, crying, but I knew how to play the game. The key to success here was deception, and so without another look, I joined my friends. Hi everyone, my name's Alex. Yeah, I used to be a problem. If you knew me, you would have wished that you didn't. Justifiably so. But like anything else stubborn, I took hits after hits till I straightened out. A few days after it happened, I got called into the principal's office. My heart jumped to my throat when I saw my dad sitting there. He looked at me, but didn't say anything. It's been a long time since I saw him angry, but seeing him there hunched over in silence, I felt pain. And then I saw Farah, looking scared, sitting between 2 people. I glared at her and she pulled back, like trying to sink into the couch. On either side of her sat her parents. They seemed completely focused on my dad. Told him that he is useless because he couldn't teach me anything. I wanted to punch them. I would have. But the principal fixed me with her unblinking leveled gaze. The principal told me I was suspended for 2 weeks for what I did. Farah's parents wanted me expelled, but my dad begged them to reconsider. I saw Farah's dad argue with my dad, and then left as my dad just stood silent. You should have let me handle it. We were just having light fun. She was the one who attacked me. Dad stayed silent. Why don't you say something? There was a time when you would have punched someone for disrespecting you. Today you just stood and took their insult. Now you just stayed cooped up in your workshop. Dad stayed silent. Angry, I pulled the handbrake, bringing us to a stop in the middle of the road. Dad sighed and started driving again. It seems like an eternity before he spoke. That man feels that he failed in his most solemn duty. That of his guiding his son. I spent the rest of the time in my room. It's Farah's fault, I sent in the group chat. It's the principal's fault. She could have just let you go, but no, she had to make a big deal out of it. We should do something big. Maybe that'll teach her a lesson and she won't mess with you. Maybe we can even postpone the tests if we do something big. The more people we involve, the safer we would be. Less suspicion. There's a test? So, some days later, I gathered my boys and we found our principal's car. We weren't gonna do anything big, just a warning. It was a really nice vintage car, and when I broke the first window, I got the best feeling of satisfaction ever. Keenan, Trent, and I slashed a tire each. When we were done, the car smelled like fish and had rude words painted all over it. I went home that afternoon feeling vindicated. I'll probably be expelled, but maybe that was for the best. The following morning, when my boys and I got called into Mr. Garrett's office again, I was ready to deny everything, and I was sure my boys would have my back. But before I could even sit down, those 2 sold me out. I had told him to stop, miss, but he just wouldn't listen. Yeah, Miss Principal, I tried to pull him away from your car, but he kicked me in the gut. My blood ran cold. Just like that. I was prepared to finally be expelled when my dad came running in. He knelt on the floor and begged Miss Garrett to not expel me. I honestly didn't want him to. I wish he'd just let me transfer. But it worked, and I was simply grounded and suspended for another week. The principal stopped me just before we left. Be careful. Next time? There will be no next time. When we got home, Dad looked so tired. I found out he had to pay for Mrs. Garrett's car, and so he had to fire 2 of his employees at the gas station. He took me to the attic, and I felt fear. Maybe he'd finally had enough. Maybe I was out of line, but if it could bring some of his old self back, it would be worth it. But we just stood there. In the attic were trophies from my early years in boxing and old family photos. Everything collecting dust. Why bring me here? I still believe in you. The person I know you are. The person I know you could be. I pointedly didn't look at the pictures of my mom. She was like everyone else. Like Keenan, like Trent, like Farah. Everyone just in for the money, prestige status. Like her, they would lie and deceive to gain what they want. Like I do. My father's words hung around me. Such stupidity. Yet I began weeping. Later that day, I told my dad that I would help him try and make up for all the harm I caused him. That whole week, I worked non-stop. Tired from my work, I slept easy. I tried to reach out to Farah to apologize, but no luck. So as the week ended, first time in a long, long time I looked forward to school. But when I got back to school, nobody would talk to me. Even my gang turned their back on me. People talked behind my back, saying I had serious anger issues, saying I was probably a psychopath. And so, I became the sole target in dodgeball. But I still worked at the shop, helping my dad gave me a much-needed peace. As I was cleaning around one of the pumps, a Jeep pulled up, kicking up dust and making me cough. My horror when I looked up to see the driver when he rolled down his windows. It was Trent. And beside him in the passenger seat was Keenan. Their eyes bulged out of their heads. What the actual... Oh. Trent looked horrified, then threw his head back and began to laugh. No wonder you never let us hang out at your place. You're poor! This is the business your dad owns? Yeah? You told us your dad's an oil tycoon. Ha ha ha! Oil tycoon? More like a washed-up gas station owner. You know what? I changed my mind. Let's go to a different gas station. I don't want some gross, dirty liar touching my car. The news spread, and I became an outcast. People would trip me in the halls. They would steal my shoes and throw them in the pond. Some of my books would go missing with no explanation. And one day, Keenan and Trent held me down as Mike, their new friend, stole my phone from me and dangled it over my head. He threw it onto the ground and stepped on it until it broke. They were probably picking on me to distance themselves from me. I was at the bottom of the ladder now. I could have beat up all 3 of them, but I held back. Then, one day I walked up to Farah. She had been avoiding me, but this time she didn't run. Are you hurt? I smiled. They're too weak to hurt me. I just let them play their game so they can move on. I'm sorry for what I did. Okay. That's it? Yes. She went back to her work. She was making notes on the workings of luxury cars. I felt the anger rising. I just apologized, and she... I took a deep breath and calmed myself. I nodded and left. As I became old news, my life calmed down. There were still bad customers. There was a man with a McLaren. He didn't have enough change and told me that working on his car should be enough payment. I learned that these types of customers are not worth it. He just handed me a half-scratched lottery ticket and left. I left it there, almost forgetting about it. My father hated anything related to gambling. He was probably going to throw it out. I decided to give it a shot. Dad was out of the state. It was the best time to change things. And when I won, I could see endless possibilities. I could do so much. I looked around the place and decided I would change things. I used a bit of it to renovate the whole place. The workshop was the last thing he had of my mother. He would never let me change it. But in his absence, I took things into my own hands. Now it was my turn to help him. I even bought the lot next to us and turned it into a car lot. I knew how to run things, but didn't have the technical expertise, so I called in Farah. You are still not forgiven, and I still don't trust you. That's fair. I just need your opinion. I know a thing or two about customers and how to deal with the business, but I need someone to see what I don't. I don't trust you. But maybe I can trust the person you are becoming. And so, we joined forces. Her expertise in cars and my experience in the business. From that day on, I worked as the boss of my own car lot, and Dad got to retire the moment he got back. He hated changing anything at the workshop, and for days, he would not talk to me. Time to leave the past in the past, Dad. I explained to him. My business thrived, and I got even more popular when I built my own website and turned my business into a luxury car-only online dealership. Customers would order the luxury cars, I would import them for them, and then I'd have the cars delivered to their doorstep. Farah made sure that everything was up to regulations and straightened any kinks while she trained others who were interested in cars. My old friends came to me one day, begging me to let them join in on the action because their dads had gotten tired of them being useless. But I just laughed them off. I wasn't going to let them spoil what we had built. But if you want to learn and assist, we always look for new hard-working interns. You know where to find me. Then I drove off in my Bugatti.